everybody, it's Teresa. Welcome back to my channel. And today is a special video. It's actually going to be a challenge. It is the Daily Thanks Challenge from Marika Creates, and her co-host is Elizabeth from the Dainty Soap DIY. And she kind of put out a little call of making a video about things that kind of lift you up in hard times. And I really like the message, so I haven't done a lot of challenges before, but I really wanted to do something that was kind of in like the Thanksgiving time frame type of craft, and this just seemed like a perfect fit, and it just came at just the right moment for me. So all of the information for the playlist and for hers and her co-host channels are going to be down below, so go ahead and check them out and check out that playlist. And just to give you an idea of what I made this one sign here for like the Thanksgiving time, when, you know, it's a special time because families get together. We haven't had a lot of opportunity to do that, you know, with everything with COVID. And then another thing I made is one thing that I absolutely love to make are things that you can change out and, you know, change up for your season. It saves you some space. It saves you time. If you decide to make it like this, you don't have to make multiple of the same kind of thing. So it was like, well, you know, one of the things that I love to do when I'm not feeling so great about life or whatever, I love to craft. So, and these are actually a couple of these big block words from the Dollar Tree, and a lot of them are kind of in that same feeling of things that help kind of lift you up. So we've got one that is thankful, and ready for it, it comes off and is magnetized to other ones. We've got one that is family, and we have one that is merry. So I kind of gave it where I've got something great for Thanksgiving time frame, Christmas time frame, and great for pretty much any time. So check out what's coming up next on me walking you through these crafts, and don't forget to check out that playlist, and I will see you next time. And oh, of course, don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.
Alright, so for our first DIY, we are going to make that changeable sign, and you're going to be using 2 packs of stir paint sticks. Those are from Lowe's. I think they're like $1 each, and then whichever of these block letter words that you have from Dollar Tree. And I believe you can still get the Merry and Peace ones. So first thing I am going to do is I'm just going to kind of measure roughly where it is that I want to trim down on those stir sticks. And to do that, I'm just kind of getting like a basic idea of where it is with a pencil, and I'm going to take it outside and actually cut it in a miter box. I think that I'm probably going to be putting a pair of miter shears on my wish list for Christmas, so perhaps Santa will get those for me. So here they all are cut down, and we're going to go in with this folk art wood tint in walnut. And this is actually my first time using it. It's very much like a stain, except it doesn't smell awful. So it has pretty much no scent. So if smells bother you, this is a really good alternative to a wood stain. They don't make too many colors. They have this one and I think like a gray one. I tried the gray one time. I didn't care for it, but I'll have to try it again on something else. So I just go over it with the wood tint, and then wipe it off kind of as you go. And now that they're all finished, they don't take too long to dry. Really, it's pretty quick dry time. I'm just going to kind of line them up and make sure I get an idea of how I want them kind of put together. I don't want them straight across because I'm fairly certain they're not going to be exactly even. I just wasn't that concerned about it when I was cutting. So what I'm going to do as well, I'm going to take these extra stir sticks. I'm not worried about how they look or anything like that, and I'm going to start gluing down to that. This is going to help give a lot more stability. At first I thought I was just going to glue them all together, but I decided this was going to be a much better way to go. So I'll do them like this, kind of like one at a time, because it's going to give you a lot more leeway on getting it in there and getting it really close and flush with the one next to it. So this is pretty much the way we're going to do this, just one after another. And another option you can do, which I'll do in a minute, you could flip them over as well. I'm just kind of looking at it, making sure I like the pattern of all of them. And another option you have as well is you can glue them all together and then do the wood tint. Just kind of depends on your preference. I'm not real sure if one's better than the other. If you're trying to get it done in a little bit faster, then you could certainly glue it first and then do the tint. Just if you do that, make sure that you're very careful about getting any excess glue. If you get glue on something before you do the tint, it's not going to tint the glue. So obviously they go longer than one whole paint stick. So what we'll do now is we're going to just put them down how best ever they fit. And you could probably do this the entire way across as well. And then I'm going to go in with the stick on the back. I liked doing it the other way just because you can really make sure that everything stays really close together. And for some added stability, I'm going to put some of these extra little ends and then another stick in there as well, just to make sure it really stays together. And now I'm just going to go in, like I said, with a few extra ones just to fill in some spaces, keep it really together, because those block letters from Dollar Tree, they are kind of heavy. So, and you're going to be using magnets, or you could use Velcro as well. So once I've gotten enough that I feel pretty safe about it, flip it over, kind of take a look, and just for a little extra stability, I'm going to take some wood glue. And I decided, instead of just smearing it all on with the applicator, I decided I'm going to paint it, and I'm just going to paint it on all of the cracks, the areas basically that where the paint sticks meet. I felt like this was nice because it's going to kind of run into some of those little cracks and crevices and really give it a nice hold. The last thing you really want is to have this fall apart. Really, it would not make anybody's day if it ends up falling apart. So I thought this was kind of a nice little touch you could do. And if you're trying to make this as a gift, one thing I would definitely suggest is be obviously a lot more selective of how you put it together. With my extra pieces, it doesn't look so pretty from the back, obviously. But what you could do is, instead of doing those small sticks that I use like the end pieces of, you can be a little bit more consistent with where you're putting the larger sticks and still do the extra glue, and then you could probably just cover it up with like craft paper on the back to give it a little bit more of like a finished, polished look. If you're giving it as a gift, I would definitely recommend doing something like that. This is just going to go up on one of my walls, I believe. Unless my mom sees it or something and decides she likes it, then she may end up with it. And then I might do that, to cover it with the craft paper. All right, so I already have my family sign was already painted. And that one, just in case you're curious, is the folk art in Nantucket blue. So since that one's already finished up, I'm going to go ahead and go in to paint both the thankful and the merry sign. The thankful sign, I'm going to go in with my folk art sheepskin paint, chalk paint, and we'll just give it one really good coat. And just take your time on it, because you're going to have a little bit of time just going in between all of those letters. The thankful one is much harder than the merry one. So here it is. It's all finished up. If you are trying to do like a really opaque covering, I would definitely say go in with 2 coats. And then we're going to go in with Parisian gray, and I'm going to give it kind of a little bit of a distressed look. I thought the black would be too harsh, so I figured the gray would be a lot better. And we're just going to go in with a chip brush and just kind of dry brushing, maybe a little bit heavier than a dry brushing in a couple of spots. So it just depends on your preference. I definitely wanted to do the outside edge of all the letters just to give it a little bit more depth. And just make sure when you're doing it, you don't put too much paint in one spot. I have a couple spots that I definitely felt like were a little too heavy on, so just to, be aware of that. My son was so funny when he saw the Mary one. He's like, he looked at all of these signs. He's like, well, what are they all for? So you'll just go over all of your lines and edges with it. And if you don't like this look, you can always, just do it one big, one opaque coat, or two coats to make it opaque, I should say. So next we're going to do pretty much the same thing with Mary, except we're going to go in with the Waverly chalk paint in moss. That's just the color I chose. You could go way more, traditional and do, a red or something like that. So we're going to take our Truffle, it's just a deep brown, and we're going to take that on to the antlers on that, not the antlers, I lied, I'm sorry, the actual face of the reindeer. And just to give him a little bit more, of something so you can see that it's a reindeer head, but this way that sticks out a little bit, but not so much. I mean, obviously it's a little different than the rest of the sign, and then I'll go over it lightly with that Truffle paint, kind of going over the tops and the bottoms, and then the edges, of all the letters. And on the parts where it meets the other letters and you really can't tell where it stops and starts, sometimes I'll give it a little bit more, like where the R meets the Y. Little bit of times I'll kind of go in and make that a little bit more rounded, so you can almost see where the R is supposed to be. And then I'm going to go in with Hazelnut from Waverly, and I'm going to do the antlers in the Hazelnut color. That way it just gives it's a little bit lighter as far as the color compared to that Truffle, and it just kind of, gives it a little something different to look at. And since I did already do that family in the blue, I'm going to go over that with a little bit of that Hazelnut as well, just to give it, some depth, to give it a little bit, give it a little something so you can see the letters a little clearer. I mean, obviously they're clear, you can tell what they are, but it's just nice to give it a little bit of that. So here they are, they're all finished. And now the next part that we're going to be doing is we're actually going to go in and add all of our magnets. And you're going to obviously want to wait until everything is dry. And the dry time on the wood is actually not too bad. I do want to say, make sure you're giving yourself at least 20 or 30 minutes if you do the wood glue, to make sure it kind of gives it enough time to dry so it's not going to drip all over anything. And I would say wait until probably 24 hours or so before you decide to hang it. So I'm just kind of giving it a basic idea, finding out where my midpoint is, so that I make sure I put a magnet in the middle. There are 15, I believe, 15 sticks that go across. So that way you do know, your middle point is obviously number 8 from whichever direction you're counting. And I'll just put down my magnet, that first one. And the way I liked to do this, just to make sure I don't do something silly like put the wrong end of the magnet, so they're trying to stay away from each other instead of go closer to each other. I like to put it on that first one that I put down on the board. So you'll just add all of your glue onto it, and what I'll do now is, thankful is my longest word, so I'm doing the magnets down first and kind of gauging where I want it based on the letters, and then I'll go in with the glue on, the magnet that'll stay on the word. See, so now I've got them all placed down, good spot, and now I'll just kind of take a quick look and make sure everything's in a good spot, and I'll get a good press down on it, give it a second to dry, and then there you go, they're on your words. And apparently I forgot to glue down the other ones first. Maybe I decided to do it that way. Yep, oh, I ran out of glue. That helps. So this time around what I actually glued it down to the words first. The other way, obviously, the other words you'll have to do it the other way. So you give it a good press and pull it up, and you'll see that your magnets stayed where they were supposed to. So on family, I do end up I'll have one magnet that ends up showing a little bit in where the Y curves to make almost like the little bottom tail part of the Y. So it's almost not even obvious. It's like you almost can't see it. So I wasn't too worried about it. So I'll give it an idea of where I want everything, and once you'll see kind of how the L ends up being like that L kind of pushes down a little bit. So what I do end up doing, I'm going to decide I'm going to add another one, and it ends up working out really well because the top part of the F is there. So, and be careful, these magnets like to stick together, so if you aren't too careful, you'll end up with a couple of them all latched on to each other, and it will feel off because obviously there's, multiple. So I'm just going to do a quick look and make sure everything fits, and I'll add on that other magnet onto the top part of that F and then pull it off, and we'll be good. Oh, I think I didn't end up letting the glue stick all the way, so just give it a minute for the glue to dry down a little bit. And so I do end up using like a little more than a pack and a half, so you'll need 2 packs of those little magnets. These are the smaller ones. They have 2 sizes at Dollar Tree if that's where you end up going for them. There's 2 sizes. These are the smaller of them. So see, you'll just put down your glue on everything, arrange your letters so they're in the best spots you could have them, and press down pretty good. Give it a second or two for it to dry and pull it off, and there you have it. They're stuck. See how I said the Y one? That one's in a little of a little weird spot. And we'll just repeat it pretty much for however many of these word blocks that you have. The Mary is really easy. It's got a lot of space for those magnets to go. So I think the only one I ended up having any magnet showing on was the Y on family. So now next we're just going to take some twine. This is from Walmart. It's a little bit thicker than the one from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to tie a knot on the end of each side just to give the glue a little extra something to hold on to, because these are, like I said, they are heavy. So that's why I decided I didn't really want to go with the twine from Dollar Tree, because that if you pull on it pretty good, I mean, it does break. It's not very thick. So, and I didn't want it to be so thick like the nautical rope from there, because that's just really thick. So I gave it a really good douse of hot glue. If you have a staple gun handy, that would also work pretty well. I'm just kind of positioning it a little bit with for the hot glue to dry down, and this way it actually ends up being a little bit underneath the rope and a little bit on, and mostly on top though. That one is all finished. I'll show you at the end how it ends up looking. And this is for our gather sign. This sign down here, it's already painted because I was thinking I was going to use it for a different project a while ago. But it's one of those beware signs with all the glitter removed. So, in this we're just going in with the antique wax from Folk Art, and I'm just taking a foam brush and applying it kind of with more like I'm putting it down with the tip of the foam brush where it's kind of absorbed in, and then using the side of it to kind of smear it all around. We're going to get kind of like a wood look to it. When you're painting it, when you're painting like how I have the white, don't worry about being neat. I mean, leave it, kind of sloppy, because that's all the better for this when you're putting down this antique wax, because it's going to give it a nice texture to it to make it look a little bit more like wood. When you're doing it, make sure you're keeping everything going in one direction. So, like obviously on this one, it's easiest just to go, left to right and right to left, and that's going to give you a lot more of that wood look. So here I'm just going to add like little lines of it where it's a little bit darker, and then I'll smooth it out some. I'm just trying to give it a little more of like a texture that you would find on like a piece of wood. And if you end up not wanting it to be as light as this is, make sure that your paint that you're putting on the base is just a little darker. Like this, my lighting was really washing it out a lot. So I've done once where I used almost like a light beige, and it gave a much darker look to this paint. So, and you can even do a second coat of the Waverly wax not the Waverly wax, sorry. I've been looking for that forever and I cannot find it at the Walmart anytime I go. But the antique wax, you could do another coat of it too if you wanted it to be a darker look. So just keep that in mind as well. It just depends on how light or how dark you want it. If you wanted to give it more of like a gray tone, you could go in with a light gray. Just whatever you want to do with it, it's gonna work out pretty well. I was really happy I kind of discovered that method. Well, discovered it for me, obviously. I'm sure other people have been doing the same thing. But then I'm going to go over the gather with that same antique wax just to rough it up a little, give it a little depth, make it look a little more worn. So we'll just give a good amount of glue on the back, kind of position it. This one's a little hard because like the G is really goes down far and the T goes up really high. And at that point, I thought I was done, and then I decided I wanted to add kind of a frame. So I've got these little tumbling tower blocks, Jenga blocks, whatever they're called, from Dollar Tree. You'll just need one pack to be able to do your frame. And I glue them in sets of 3. So you do end up using, I believe, 30 blocks total. And I'm going to use, a set of 3 for the sides, and then you'll need your rest of your sets for the top. I've learned this from a previous project. What you'll do is you'll put down your blocks that are going on the side first, and then you'll start to put down your blocks up on top. Now I will say, when you're doing this, try to start off wherever you have something hanging higher or lower. Like for me, it's the bottom part of the G is definitely a lot lower, so that's where on the bottom I definitely wanted my first set to be, so I knew where the rest of it had to be. And the top of the G kind of hangs out a little bit, hangs up a little higher too, so this just makes it a lot easier. And make sure you put down your blocks off to the other side before you get all the way over there, because it's going to make a difference on where your how far over those bottom and top blocks can go. And it ended up working out pretty well. I had to space them out just a little bit in a couple of spots. You can barely tell, so it ends up working out, I think, 3 on the sides and 12 on the top and 12 on the bottom, so end up using 30 blocks total. And make sure when you're doing it, you only put your hot glue in the top or the bottom part of it, and pay attention to where you're putting it. That last one, I ended up putting it in the wrong spot, so just an FYI. Make sure you're putting your bead of hot glue in the right spot. So you'll just basically keep doing that until you're finished. I felt like the groups of 3 made it a lot easier to manage, where I wasn't trying to put a thing of glue down on 12 and then position it and end up worried about it not end up getting it down there in time. And there it is, all finished. You can leave it like that if you like the natural look. I am going to go in with just a little bit of that antique wax, and it's going to give it just kind of like a little bit of something. I put down a little bit of it, and then I'll go back with like the side part of it to blend it out a little bit. So it just, depending on how you do it, it could look more like a burnt color, it could look more finished, you could have painted them. If you do paint them, I would recommend doing that before you glue them down, just because I feel like that has a lot more chance of getting it on something. I didn't mind doing the antique wax on it after I glued it, since everything else already had some of that antique wax on it, so I feel like it gave it a little bit of a burnt look. So here is everything all finished up. You'll see all of the signs with the different options. And this was really fun. I'm so thankful for being able to do this challenge. It was a lot of fun. It really kind of helped me, give me a reason to reflect and things to think about. And I hope that if you're new here, you consider subscribing and seeing all the stuff we have coming up. And I wish everyone the very best Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone enjoys any time they get to spend with their family. See you next time. Bye.